TRT Haber ekranlarından herkese iyi akşamlar, iyi günler sayın seyirciler. Ben Gökhan, Gökçe. Bugün özel bir röportaj için ekranlarınızdayız. Özel röportajı yapacağım kişi ise Türkiye'nin FETÖ'nün uluslararası faaliyetlerini incelemesi için gerekli yasal işlemleri başlatması ve onları takip etmesi için anlaştığı hukuk firmasının, yani Amsterdam ve Partners hukuk firmasının başkanı Robert Amsterdam bizimle birlikte. Onunla beraber 15 Temmuz darbe girişiminin ardından yaşananı, daha doğrusu FETÖ aleyhinde Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nde sürdürülen faaliyetleri yasal olarak ve darbe girişiminin FETÖ elebaşının iadesi için nasıl bir zemin hazırladığını, aynı zamanda FETÖ'nün Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'ndeki okullarına ilişkin ülke içinde, yani Amerika'da süren yasal mücadeleyi konuşacağız. Özel röportajımız başlıyor. Evet, hemen merhaba diyelim konuğumuza. Mr. Amsterdam, thank you for joining us on TRT News. And you know, we're having hard times here in Turkey for the past month. And about a week ago, I will start with that actually. About a week ago, you've written an article that was published on Forbes. And the title was that, on this article, to understand Turkey's alleged coup plotter, look to his schools in US. That's what you said. That was the headline. So was there a particular reason that you chose this, or do you see any relations between FETÖ's charter schools in US and his organization that is covered in darkness?
Well, in fact, the reason we chose to write the article is to introduce to the American public the fact that in their midst is a man who's running 150 charter schools, educating 60,000 students, taking in $500 million of American money. And this man and his organization have engaged in criminal conduct in the United States for years. Criminal conduct that is obvious to anyone looking at the structure. And therefore, we wrote, the American public needs to understand that the present picture of Fethullah Gulen as an old reclusive imam in Pennsylvania is nowhere near the truth.
So I think you think that American public doesn't have a clue about this FETÖ organization, right now?
Not a clue. I would say to you,
even about his schools.
In fact, as you may be aware, he does not in any way disclose his relationship to the schools. Parents in the United States can send children to these schools and not know. In fact, the wide majority have no idea that Gulen is behind it or involved. They think that the Turkish teachers are chosen because the Turkish principal is Turkish and wants his own countrymen. They don't know that, in fact, the teachers are followers of Gulen, that they have to pay 20% of their income back to Gulen, that they lied on their application to the U.S. Embassy. What's interesting that we know from WikiLeaks is that in 2005, the U.S. folks here in Istanbul and in Ankara were alerting their bosses in the United States that something was strange with these applications, but nothing was done.
What do you think nothing was done? I mean, how do you see, I mean, as far as we see from Turkey, this failed coup attempt that we've been through, after that, we don't see any concrete steps from the United States, from the US authorities about FETÖ, about Gülen. Why is that? I mean, how do you see it?
Well, look, firstly, as you may be aware, we have uncovered, and we believe it's quite public at this point, that Gülen's organization has a massive political lobbying and donation structure in the United States.
Exactly.
People such as Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have received significant monies, not only from Gulen, or perhaps not even from Gulen directly, but from his acolytes or followers. And we've also uncovered that teachers, Turkish teachers, Turkish American teachers, have been donating to various politicians in masses around the United States. So there's number one, there's a built-in sense in FETÖ of their own impunity in the United States. And then there is a suspicion that at one point or another, FETÖ in the U.S. was in some form of relationship with some organ of the United States government, which would help explain how they could be involved in such a sophisticated political arrangement as they are in the United States. But whether or not that still continues is an open question.
U.S. public is very much sensitive about issues like tax fraud and social justice and inequality and working rights of the people. As you mentioned here, all employees working for Gülen's schools are subject to a special kind of human resources policy, as far as we know, other than the legal policy that the country, that the U.S. has given them. And the most concrete example to that is, as you said, they're giving some of their money to this FETÖ organization, the employees that are working for the charity schools. But legally, let's say there's a director in one school and he earns about $5,000. That is on paper. Actually, what he or she really earns is $3,000. So there's a difference. On the other hand, there are people that works like ordinary people, ordinary workers in these schools, but they are actually the observers of FETÖ. They earn like $3,000 on paper, but they are given $10,000 a month. And this money comes from a dirty pool money that they have organized, right? So they are those people working for FETÖ's school in the States. They're losing their thing, you know? So in that sense, do you plan to let the U.S. authorities and the U.S. public know that the rights of those people are being extorted by FETÖ?
Well, in fact, we have done that. There's a website called guleninvestigation.com, which is public. And in there you can find our complaints in California and Texas, which set out in detail discrimination against American employees who are not paid equally, discrimination which is common between men and women teachers, and the scams involving not only the H-1B visa fraud, but the use by the Gulen organization of related party contractors who receive very favorable contracts and we believe then provide a kickback to Gulen. And really included there are a mass of other facts and figures concerning the inability of the FETÖ group in the United States to withstand an audit. Every time a state auditor looks at those schools, significant red flags are raised.
But still, as we know here, I mean, actually I should ask this question to you. Do you have any challenges in the States, especially you are working for Turkish Republic. You are overseeing international inquiries against FETÖ and in these states. So are you having challenges that is coming from the U.S. authorities?
Well, not so much from the U.S. authorities, but there is, you know, the organization itself, while it proclaims it's in favor of freedom of speech, is wildly aggressive in using law firms to try to shut up anyone who criticizes these schools in the United States. And of course, we run up against a very strong current in the United States that is basically anti the present government, arguing that the present government has violated human rights principles with respect to journalists. And the animosity is hard to understand unless you're aware of the fact that the Gulen organization spends a tremendous amount of money on PR and lawyers, constantly attacking the Turkish government and also promoting its own interests as an organization that is involved in interfaith dialogue.
Are you confident that you will be successful against the fight against FETÖ here in that sense? I mean, so as you said, they're spending enormous amounts of money on PR and for lawyers. So they're attacking Turkish government and they're trying to promote their own interests using that money. And how about you?
Look, I believe that if this continues, we can be successful because the organization itself behaves in a manner that, quite frankly, seems like petty theft, and then not so petty theft. There doesn't seem to be an honest statement in almost anything these schools say, in anything Gulen says. And in fact, important statements he's made recently can be easily disproven. He went and made a massive statement that's been distributed all over the world that he never supported a coup, whereas we know very well that he supported the coup in 1980, he supported the semi-coup in 1997. I mean, every time he speaks, we are able to demonstrate the lies that are contained within those statements. And of course, we have the additional problem of explaining to our American and Canadian and other friends that in fact, part of what Gulen teaches his own followers is deception.
Yes.
And this becomes, you know, a very difficult thing for people in the West to understand.
So it's what we are facing as well. I mean, and the diplomacy as well. I mean, let's face it. If Turkey and U.S. are trying to overcome their differences using diplomacy, we don't see too many U.S. authorities in the legal sense trying to put their hands under the stone.
Well, again, number one, it's early days for Americans to wake up to what's going on.
That's a good description, wake up. They have to wake up, right?
They have to wake up, and I think they also need a more balanced view of President Erdogan and his administration. And that takes time and education by the government. And you've got some brilliant people in this government like Ibrahim Kalin and others who make a strong effort at explaining to the West what's going on. But Gulen spends so much money on PR. And the media in the U.S. appears in some ways almost hopelessly one-sided. The New York Times, really the record of American history when it comes to Turkey in the last few years has been almost unrecognizable in its bias. At the same time, let us be clear, the Turkish government has not been as effective as it could be in getting its own message out. Part of the problem in the United States is the United States, many Americans feel that the Turkish people do have problems with them. And it's almost a backlash against what they see as Turkish animosity to the United States. And this is something we've got to address. We have to, after this terrorist attack, we have to here in Turkey also strongly recognize the need to appear to be sensitive to rule of law issues, sensitive to the rights of journalists and to the rights of those accused. The more sensitive we are in those areas, the easier it will be to make demands of other countries to recognize us as equal partners. And the United States has a duty to extradite. We should give them no excuse not to do that.
I was about to come to that point, the extradition. Do you think then Washington can extradite Gulen?
Look, I believe it is possible. I believe it's difficult for a vast number of reasons. One of the least contentious reasons is his age, is
Okay.
the fact that there are going to be many issues surrounding his age, allegations of infirmity, which, by the way, he's raised for years. These are all issues that you have to even separate out from the political issues and understand that at some point a judge in the Middle District of Pennsylvania may be forced to make a decision as to whether or not there's probable cause. And that becomes an independent judicial decision.
It is possible, but you have to work hard, I guess, huh?
Yes.
Excellent.
Well, the government will have to work hard.
Of course. Do you think that, as the spokesman of the U.S. Foreign Secretary puts it, do they have enough instruments to at least prevent Gulen from escaping U.S.? I mean, we have had news and we have had rumors that this organization, this FETÖ organization, is building a huge premise in South Africa. And we have rumors that he may escape to Egypt or to South Africa. And as I said, U.S. Foreign Secretary spokesman put it, we have had enough instruments. That's what he said. Do you believe that they have the right instruments?
Look, to be frank with you, I would be very surprised, given the present situation, if he was allowed to depart the United States. But again, one can only shake one's head at the power that Gulen appears to have, and one cannot count him or his organization out. And I think the important thing for the Turkish people to understand is that this wave of anti-Americanism I'm seeing is easily and arguably a part of the Gulen plan. And we can't fall for it. It is very important for us to understand that what he wants to do is drum up that animosity so that he's given a safe haven in the United States. And we can't let ourselves fall into this trap. We need time, and we need to, and I believe the government has terrific lawyers and they're doing an excellent job. Those lawyers need time to present the evidence to Washington. And the people in Turkey need time, I think, to deal with their frustration, because I can tell you how personally proud and privileged I feel every day to represent the people of Turkey, even more so after July 15th, after seeing the people rise up themselves to defend their democracy, seeing the unity in the country. It's an incredibly empowering feeling for anyone who comes here. And over time, that will be understood in the West. And I think it's a tragedy and another error of American foreign policy that the Vice President wasn't here July 20th, that people have waited to show their solidarity with the people of Turkey.
Why do you think U.S. didn't do such a thing? I mean, they weren't hard. I mean, they didn't stand as good as they could stand with Turkey side by side, unfortunately, and that caused this frustration you're talking about.
Listen, the night of the attack, I can't tell you the number of people that
It's been 240 right now.
Yeah.
They've been martyred.
Not just those that have been martyred, but the number of people in the U.S. that called me and spoke to me to express their solidarity with the Turkish people. But those feelings never get reflected. And as I said, I think there needs to be a real effort at rebuilding a constructive dialogue, not only between governments, but between peoples. And how that occurs is way beyond my pay grade, but I think it's important to happen.
Exactly. If that happens, I mean, you'll probably have the enough space to work with if those trust between the two countries comes to life back again. So,
but if I can interrupt you, one of the key things has to be, going back to Ronald Reagan's comment in Reykjavik, trust and verification. In other words, no American leader can come to this country and say, we didn't know about FETO, when my firm and others have provided hard evidence of criminal conduct going on in the United States for a lengthy period of time, when WikiLeaks has provided hard evidence of serious suspicions occurring within the United States government. So people on both sides really have to take these threats to the national security of both the United States and Turkey and other countries very seriously.
As far as we know, Turkey has taken this issue as a threat to its national security, but we cannot see that the same attitude from Washington right now, at least for now.
Yes, and I think part of it has to do with whether or not Washington sees it as a terrorist organization, which is something I know the government here is working on, and it's something President Erdogan, to his credit, has been on top of for a long period of time already.
Why do you think the U.S. authorities are seemingly very hesitant to cooperate with Turkey, actually with Turkey's demand about the leader of FETÖ?
Look, as I said, a host of reasons, not the least of which is many leading American politicians, including, as you know, you see it all the time played here, Bill Clinton and others,
yes,
have publicly identified themselves with Mr. Gulen. And I think that public identification and the vast number of politicians who have taken money makes it difficult to wake up to the fact that you've taken money from someone who's engaged in subversive or terrorist activities such as this. So I think that's part of the problem. And there are other parts of the problem, which is that he's got some very powerful backers. Former senior people in the CIA have come out publicly to support him. Former ambassadors have come out publicly to support him in a way that's so obvious that it can leave little doubt there has been some relationship with certain agencies in the United States. No one in the U.S. should argue that Turkey is full of conspiracy theories when you look at the people who have supported this man. It isn't Turkey being foolish with conspiracy theories, it is America being blind to the facts that are staring right in front of them. One of them being the very man who was involved in allegedly the idea of Iran-Contra coming to the aid of Mr. Gulen time and time again.
We can say that, I mean, I was about to say that Graham Fuller, Mr. Graham Fuller, was a supporter for Fethullah Gulen when he applied for the green card to live in U.S. and he supported him. And we know who Graham Fuller is.
Well, and he supported him right after the coup.
Exactly.
There is a knee-jerk reaction of Mr. Fuller.
I mean, why do you think U.S. authorities don't see that? I mean, is it the problem with the U.S. authorities, or is it the problem with the U.S. citizens that they don't know those things are happening? And they, as you said, they think that Turkey is a country that is run by conspiracy theories.
Look, the United States has a different world view than Turkey.
Exactly.
The United States is a country, thank God, that hasn't faced many of the challenges Turkey faces, and is a country that so many of its citizens could barely identify where Turkey is on a map.
True.
To be honest.
That's true.
So what needs to also be understood is that Gulen has absorbed the American right-wing freedom narrative of avoiding regulation in his incredible way to simulate or turn into something different. He has many supporters on the right wing of American politics who support the charter schools and say no regulation, almost no law. He's come up, he or his abe, his whoever's been helping him, has come up with this great marriage of a political movement in the charter movement in the U.S. that says no regulation, and a manipulative criminal organization like Gulen, who can use that narrative to steal serious amounts of money from the American people and never tell people that he's got these schools, that he's bringing his followers in. In some of the schools, the amount of money spent on immigration lawyers for his followers is 50% of what's being spent on textbooks. And those immigration lawyers, that's not even an allowable expense. So I can tell you, one day America will wake up to this gross theft. And I believe that organization will face some difficult moments. And I just hope that occurs sooner than later, and I hope it occurs in conjunction with the terrorist events of July 15th.
So going back to the law process, as far as we know that you have been, there are investigations going on in some states, as you mentioned, California and Texas.
And to be honest, and Florida, and Ohio, and Illinois.
Okay, so how about the federal level? Does it, do we need something to be done on this federal level, or should we wait for this states to come up with some solutions?
To be quite honest, I think part of the mistake Turkey may have made in the past, as many foreign countries do, is they believe that the 20 miles around Washington represents the United States. That's actually not the case. A lot of American politics is determined at the state level.
Okay.
Education is a state matter, which is why Gulen, one of the reasons Gulen structured himself this way. It's much harder to stop a cancer at the state level than it is at the federal level. So while we are in liaison with law enforcement in the United States, federally and state, we have put a lot of effort into the state-by-state approach, and we've come up against a massive organization that has infiltrated at the state level. We were just in Canada last week. Incredible number of bureaucrats in Canada who have traveled to Turkey, talking and praising Gulen. One of the things we've done is we have a cadre of whistleblowers, former Turkish teachers brought to the United States who have flipped and are now assisting us in the investigation.
Okay.
They've been very helpful. One of the things they told us was that before the coup, a number of their colleagues in various schools were told not to travel to Turkey, even when they had purchased tickets, which for some of these people was a massive expense.
Exactly.
They were told not to travel. It's a very important fact. Why were they told not to travel? And many of them suspected something like a coup or an uprising. So what's clear is that for years, Gulen has been working on delegitimizing the present government, believing that the delegitimization that he was fostering would mean that when the terror attack took place and chaos reigned, there would not be a President Erdogan to rally the people. And as we know, thank God, they were wrong. And the people have united in a very historic way to end this type of insurrection, hopefully once and for all. But they have worked and invested millions in this anti-Erdogan, anti-Turkey campaign, and it's going to take a real effort of all of us to defeat that narrative. And one of the issues I urge, one of the reasons I wanted to speak to you, is to make sure my friends here understand that this wave of anti-Americanism only serves Fedo's interests, and we should not fall prey to it. Rather, we should understand the American and the foreign public simply don't yet understand the kind of danger this organization represents.
Hopefully they will sooner or later.
Absolutely.
We have last couple of minutes, so I'm going to read something. That's a quote from you, actually. We cannot entrust an entire generation of children to a group that claims to uphold the truth of light, yet is itself covered in darkness. That's a quote from you, as far as I know, from a press conference that you have made when the Republic of Turkey appointed you to oversee the international investigations into the activities of FETÖ. What did you mean by that sentence? This is something that let's hope the United States authorities can understand.
When it comes to educating children, there is nothing more central to citizenship. The kind of citizenship that brought people onto the streets here, an ownership of not only the country but the politics and the Constitution. There's nothing more central than those early years of education. How can American parents trust Gulen to educate their children when Gulen is, even by the writings of his own followers, non-transparent and completely ambiguous as to his operations? We know in Turkey he's been guilty of stealing exams. I mean, he has set the worst example possible for an educator. How can the United States allow 60,000 children a year to go through his schools? So this was our point, and almost a year ago when we said those words.
And one last question then. Let's go from where you left. 6,000 children.
60,000.
60,000 children are going to these charity schools that FETÖ have in U.S., unfortunately. One can think, I mean, how a country, U.S., the world leader, can accept and give permission to FETÖ to have almost 150 schools in its soil, on its soil.
Well, it's almost incomprehensible, isn't it? So
exactly.
You do have to wonder, and of course, as you know, FETÖ is underground. They are not admitting their control, and we have had to spend effort and time and money to set up our own database to put together movements of teachers, movements of businesses to demonstrate the connections, because like the mafia, FETÖ is completely underground in its structure.
That is a great description, like a mafia, and they're working. Okay, so thank you for joining us. I would like to have your final words, if you have any suggestions or any messages to Turkish public, or of course to the foreigners.
Well,
after this terrorist attack, actually.
My view is that we in Turkey need to understand that the next role of FETÖ in terms of its own attack on us is to argue we're not following rule of law. It's so important that due process is established with respect to those people who have been removed from their positions, or those people that have been jailed. Under international law, you're allowed a period of time after a horror like the terror attack to proportionately address a situation. But then after that, we need due process. We also need to recognize the central role of independent journalists in protecting the democracy. And I applaud President Erdogan's recent changes where he has thrown out those cases involving insults to the president. And I think both sides within this country need to understand that freedom of expression is what saved this democracy on July 15th.
Exactly.
And it has to be upheld at all costs, no matter what the provocation from FETÖ or any other threats. And to be frank, we also, those of us engaged on behalf of Turkey, need to express to friends outside of the country the present situation and dangers that Turkey faces, and the fact that a country such as the United States, which has the death penalty, has a concentration camp in Cuba,
Exactly.
engages in the kinds of illegal activity we've seen in rendition, should be very cautious as they promote the war on terror to stop with the hypocrisy. And when it comes to coups, the United States, from a human rights standpoint, has to take a position of principle. The fact that they could allow what happened in Egypt to go on without comment, and yet seem to, at some early points of this attack, almost welcome what was going on here. All of this needs to be addressed urgently in the United States.
Mr. Robert Amsterdam, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your views with the Turkish public. Hope you good luck, actually, because you're doing a hard job, especially in the States, in a country where this FETÖ is based and have too many supporters and backers, as you said, senior authorities of the government of the United States. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Okay, a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Evet sayın seyirciler, Robert Amsterdam'ı konuk ettik bugün. Kendisi Türkiye'nin FETÖ terör örgütünün uluslararası platformlardaki aktivitelerini izlemesi için Türkiye ile anlaşan bir hukuk firmasının başkanıydı. Amsterdam and Partners. Türkiye için Amerika'da FETÖ'yü takip ediyor. Neler yapılması gerektiğini, bugüne kadar neler yaptıklarına dikkat çekti. Önemli bir başlığı da özellikle FETÖ'nün son dönemde Amerika ile Türkiye arasındaki ilişkilerin daha da gerilmesine neden olabilecek tarzdaki tuzaklarına düşülmemesi, buna göre hareket edilmesi her iki taraftan da ve Amerika'nın da burada esasında aslan payını yapması gerektiği yönündeydi. Teşekkür ediyoruz. Görüşmek dileğiyle diyelim. Hoşça kalın.